time couch surfing with friends, lamenting that Denise was controlling, as well as physically and emotionally abusive. He'd been kicked out of high school. In May 2018, Denise reportedly texted a friend regarding her concerns. She felt that Carlos's violent behavior was putting her in peril, and she asked her friend to make sure her pets were cared for in the event of her untimely death. No other calls came into dispatch from the home on South Dodge Point until July 26, 2018. According to his statement, Carlos and Denise had attended a funeral together, returning home just before 3 p.m., at which time he took a nap. Another funeral attendee would later tell police that she had overheard an uncomfortable comment made in Carlos's presence. Denise had said something about being careful when adopting a foreign child, as they can be, quote, screwed up and require frequent medical interventions. Who knows which of her children she was referring to, or if it was just a general statement coming from experience. But what we do know is that Carlos heard it. At 6:15 p.m., he phoned 911 to report a disturbance. The teen told investigators that his dog's barking from outside woke him from his nap, and he saw that a door was open. He next saw that his mother was dead in her bed. There were no signs of forced entry or reports from neighbors of unknown cars or individuals on the premises. Not only had Denise Hallowell been murdered, but she had been maliciously slain. An axe was found embedded in her head, all the way down to the handle. Initially, Carlos said that his mother's cell phone should be present on her bedside table, however, it wasn't there. Investigators knew that there were cameras installed in the home, even though Carlos had said that there weren't. Others had indicated that Denise had cameras that she could stream from her phone, and police found cords dangling but no equipment. As for the axe, Carlos explained that he hadn't used it for days after breaking down some trees felled by a storm. But there had been no storm and no trees, as they soon discovered. 4 days after he buried an axe in his mother's head, he tweeted, quote, "Sadly, my mom passed away. I love my mom so much and she will be missed, but always in my heart." It would take an additional 2 months before police had enough evidence to arrest the 17-year-old for the cold-blooded slaughter of his mother. During that time, police had dragged the bottom of a nearby lake and recovered the cameras and cell phone. Carlos's cell phone belied his truth as well, as investigators were able to use the GPS installed on it to track his movements between the family home and the lake. In a press release, the sheriff's department said, quote, "We just cannot fathom for the life of us how someone could murder their own mother in cold blood. No two cases are ever the same, and this particular case had many unique technological challenges, making it one of a kind. Justice has been partially served today, and only when Carlos is finally convicted for his despicable actions will we be satisfied." On September 16, 2018, Carlos Hallowell was arrested on a charge of first-degree premeditated murder, to which he pleaded not guilty. He was assigned a public defender, and his case is slowly winding its way toward a resolution, but it's making progress. Just 1 week before his arrest, Carlos tweeted, quote, "You never know what you're capable of until you're put in a situation where you have to get shit done." It remains his final tweet to this day. A month and a half after Carlos Hallowell was arrested, and just 70 miles away, a fresh case of matricide was bursting into the local, national, and even international news. Born on the 4th of July, Gail Cleavenger graduated from the University of Miami in 1995 and studied abroad in Glasgow before returning to work as an architect around Florida. She donated her services around the community, attended Wellspring Church, and wrote in an online profile that she was mostly interested in raising a happy kid. A devoted mother, Gail had one son, Gregory Logan Ramos, and was divorced from his father before the baby's first birthday. I read that after the divorce, he remarried and had more children, but had no further contact with his son, who was raised by a stepfather when Gail remarried. Greg grew into his teenage years with his mom close by his side. They got black belts in karate, and she even accompanied him to the shooting range. By 15, Greg, who had attended University High School just outside Orlando, Florida, was a member of the Orange City Police Explorers Youth Program, and Gail encouraged him and participated whenever she had the opportunity. Greg Ramos took forensics and crime scene investigation classes at school and had aspirations of becoming a homicide detective. He was a Boy Scout who cut lawns to earn cash, but he was also the kind of kid who drank and did drugs such as LSD at a fire pit set back behind the church a mile from his house in the town of DeBerry. His closest friends were Brian Porras and Dylan Seglarek, both 17, who were seniors in November of 2018 while Greg was a junior. Each boy described the others as being their best friend, and they were a tight-knit group. Greg's Facebook page reveals intimate details about his personality. The intro section still reads, "Hey, I'm Greg. I'm a raging conservative with a passion for debate. I'm 14 and attend University High School." His cover photo is a Kekistan flag, and his last photo posted was a visit to Trump Tower. Displaying a Kekistan flag generally ties one to the alt-right or alt-light subcultures associated with white supremacist or neo-Nazi adjacent communities popular in the darker crevices of the internet. Kekistan is a fictitious fantasy land basically crowdsourced by internet trolls, and its flag has become an identifier of participation in the subculture. On the evening of Thursday, November 1st, 2018, 15-year-old Greg Ramos worked as a police explorer, helping park cars at the Volusia County Fairgrounds for an event. Done at 8:30 p.m., Greg returned home and got into a heated argument with Gail regarding his grades. He'd gotten a D in one of his classes, and their conversation led Gail to call her husband, who was away on business in Seattle. He was scheduled to return the next day. Following the argument, Greg was filled with rage. He waited until his mother fell asleep and entered her bedroom at around 12:15 a.m., where he proceeded to strangle her with his bare hands until he thought she was dead. His next move was to retrieve a wheelbarrow, but when he returned to Gail's bedroom, he realized that his mother was still alive. Shockingly, instead of rendering aid or calling 911, Greg instead chose to finish what he started. He would later tell investigators that it took him another 30 minutes to strangle his mother to the point that she was dead. He then drug her body down the stairs and throughout the house and used the wheelbarrow to put her into her own vehicle. Greg drove toward Daytona Beach, about an hour to the northeast. But he had reservations about bringing the wheelbarrow and circled back to his home to drop it off. Once there, he left the wheelbarrow and instead grabbed a flashlight, a broom, and a shovel. Greg had a new idea, and he needed some help. He phoned Brian Porras, who initially hung up on him. Dylan Seglarek didn't answer at first, but Greg was able to convince his friends to help him cover up his mother's murder. Gail Cleavenger's body was buried in that fire pit behind River City Church, about 1.5 miles from the family's home. A semicircle of benches surrounded a pile of large rocks in the center, under which Greg dug a hole about 10 inches in depth and buried his mother. He went to school the following day, Friday, November 2nd, 2018, but before he did, he texted his stepfather to tell him everything was going great and to see what time he was expected back that day, which was around 6 p.m. The school day went as usual, but Greg left early, about 1, with Brian and Dylan, and the trio returned to the house to put their plan into motion. They ransacked the home in an attempt to stage a burglary scene, removing items like computers, a PlayStation 4, and a shotgun, which they hid. They then went to a gas station and had a soda to celebrate. The final step was to report Gail missing, and Greg put all his effort into sounding convincing. Here's part of that 911 call.
911, where's your emergency?
I just got home, and my house is completely trashed. It looks like someone broke in the side door.
Okay. How long have you been gone?
I've been gone all school day. I got home.
Are you there by yourself?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Okay. I need you to take a deep breath. I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?
Okay.
What is your address?
Alicante Road, DeBerry, Florida. And my mom's car is here, and it's on, and she's not home. And she was supposed to go to work today, and I can't find her.
Your mom is... Okay.
It's on. The car is on. It's turned on.
The car is on, and you're sure she is not there?
I searched the entire place. I've been here for like 8 minutes. I've been looking. I can't find her. The door leading out to my side yard, it looks like it's been kicked in. The door frame is like busted, and it's.
Okay, deep breath, Gregory. I'm right here with you. Okay, you're safe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything is gone.
What do you mean everything is gone?
Like all of our valuables, like my computer, the PS4, and my monitor, and like my mom's computers, and my brother's TVs.
Okay. You didn't touch your mom's car, right?
No, I saw it's like on, and I looked inside, and it looks normal. My dad got a time. He's on a business trip in Seattle, and he'll be back later this afternoon around 6.
Do you know if your mom came home, or did she ever leave?
In the morning, my mom takes me to school, and so she drove me to school and dropped me off. And then she usually drives her car to the sunrail and gets on the sunrail with her bicycle and goes to work. But the car is here, and her bicycle is in the car.
Did your mom send you any kind of messages or anything that she came home from work early today?
I haven't heard from her all day. Oh my God, there's us everywhere. And
do you see any blood or anything that indicates anything?
Yeah, there's no blood or anything, but her bed is all out of whack, and there's shit everywhere. And oh my God.
Okay. Do you feel safe to go wait out front?
Yeah, I can wait out front. It's fine.
Okay. Have you tried to call your mom or text her?
I haven't.
Okay. Are you able to send her a text message while you're on the phone with me?
Yeah. Do you want me to do that?
Nope. I want you to see if she answers you.
Okay. All right. I sent her a text message. There's an officer here.
Okay. I want you to go ahead and talk to the officer, okay, Gregory? You're doing great, okay? Just take a deep breath and let him work, okay?
Greg phoned in about 3:45 p.m. to report that he had come home from school and found many things amiss. He said that Gail's minivan was running in the driveway when he got home. He told police that his mom had dropped him off at school, and he assumed she had gone on to work, which she obviously had not. Greg claimed he stayed through the entire school day, and that as he approached his home, he could see that the side door was kicked in. Body cam footage from the deputy that responded to the call shows Greg leading her through the Cleavenger home, which is in utter disarray. Immediately, police noticed scratches on Greg's face indicative of a struggle. It doesn't take long for them to question pals Brian and Dylan, who quickly fess up to their part and the entirety of the murder. Investigators then took this information into their questioning with Greg, whose story was immediately racked with inconsistencies. They knew that Gail hadn't dropped him at school, that she hadn't gone into work, and that he'd left school early, the opposite of what he was telling them. Greg eventually confessed, delivering an expletive-laced confession with not a flicker of remorse. He bragged about how well he staged the scene, and how his 911 call was Grammy-winning, too young to realize that he meant Oscar-worthy. The accomplices ultimately led police to both Gail's body and the items missing from the fake burglary, plus the shovel and broom used at the fire pit crime scene. Greg proudly described to investigators how he used the